Good day, lads and lasses. I hope ye doing well these fine days. Have you heard of the Battle of Long Island? If not, that is today's lesson. The generals of this battle on the American side were General George Washington and General Israel Putnam. The generals on the British side were General William Howe and General Clinton. I can't quite remember his first name. The Battle of Long Island was a very important battle because that battle would mark who would get New England, modern-day New England, and who would not get it, because the Hudson River was in New York, and in New York you've got that Hudson River splitting it in half. And then when you've got that, then when you have control of the Hudson River, you are able to split the colonies in half, thus dividing them into two sides. That is why the battles was so important to them. I've got a map here of the battle and of Long Island. William Howe, after evacuating Boston, traveled down into New York. He had up to 40 ships the first time, and then he added many ships of Hessians. Hessians were hired by King George III to fight for the British. Now, let us get into the battle's details. William Howe was to go this way and attack the forces here. And then he would send another force this way to attack those forces. Then he sent Clinton up to Jamaica Pass, which was virtually no one was guarding it because the colonials or the American army had no clue about Jamaica Pass. But the loyalists in New York were more than willing to tell the British soldiers about it. So the British knew about Jamaica Pass. So they went all the way up here and then they attacked right here. George Washington had set up forts all over Long Island, and he was sure that the British were just creating a diversion to attack Manhattan. So he didn't have as many soldiers on Long Island as he did. Up here in Manhattan was where George Washington's main force was. Meanwhile, he had a general named Samuel Miles down here at Bedford. Here he had another general by the name of Alexander down here. And then right here he had another general. I can't quite remember his name, but he was a brave general. But before they realized it, the Americans realized they were under ambush and they were totally surrounded on all sides. General Alexander decided, since nothing was really going on here, that he'd send reinforcements to this general, which was a big mistake. Meanwhile, Samuel Miles decided, oh, nothing's really going on here, I'll start heading this way towards the gunfire. That was another big mistake, because as soon as he realized what Clinton had done, he had completely scutted the American forces and was now marching on Brooklyn. He tried his very best to go and meet Clinton, but he was captured in the process. At the same time, General Alexander and the other general realized that too, and they both started heading up, but they too got captured. So the remaining forces bunkered down here in Brooklyn. And while they were in Brooklyn, all 3 British forces came up and surrounded Brooklyn on this side. General Howe was probably still in shock from his Boston loss, that he was trying to be careful to not make the same mistake again. And so he had asked for 36 more ships, I believe, to come down to surround Manhattan and Brooklyn. Then Howe decided to start building trenches to corner the Americans. That way, when his ships came, they would have no way of escape. But General Washington also had a brilliant mind, a very brilliant one. And he took his brilliant mind and he made sure that his soldiers would not get hurt. He asked the main force to send over boats, lots of them. Then he told all his soldiers to pack up. And so his soldiers, while they were packing up, he and the other generals talked about how they would make a diversion. A general decided that he would be the one to stay behind and make it look like the soldiers were just keeping warm, even though it was midsummer. Meanwhile, George Washington started crossing the East River. He crossed from Brooklyn all the way over to Manhattan here, just beyond New York. And then, the general who was supposed to be creating a diversion, for some odd reason, got an order to go back with the retreat. He went back, and then got confronted by General Washington, who was still on shore, who said no, he had not given that order. But the other general crossed over. Anyway, it was starting to light, and the Americans realized it. But what they also realized was it was really foggy. So they used the cover of fog to continue their escape to Manhattan. The last person to get into a boat was the General Washington himself. He wanted to make sure no one would realize that they were gone. So he stepped in the boat and they crossed over to Manhattan. The next hour or so, they finished on with the preparations of leaving New York entirely. Meanwhile, General Howe realized that the Americans were gone because by the time George Washington had gotten across the river, the fog had lifted. This made General Howe very angry, but at least they had New York. Thank you for watching. I hope you had a good time on this video. Please subscribe. Good day, lads and lasses.